Last time on Final Fantasy IV, we screwed around on the moon for a while and obtained the final summon in the game, Bahamut. Now maybe we should go back to the planet and stop Golbez from doing whatever it is he wants to do, because we've given him a lot of time by this point. I still got 30 blinks in. And I even started late, so don't tell me we got here in the blink of an eye. Oh, darn it. Maybe we shouldn't have done side quests first. I'm finally awake after thousands of years. Ooh boy, let me tell ya, I'm very sleepy, but there's one thing I gotta say. Fuck the ocean! God, I hate the sea. And then Eblon was destroyed a second time. No, not the ocean, anything but that! Okay, to be fair, that is Edge's land, so I can kind of understand why he'd be angry about that. Oh, he's in space all of a sudden. With the Red Wings? And tanks? You push yourself hard, sitting in a comfortable chair and ordering people around to shoot at a giant. Alright, now fly straight into his attacks, everyone! Oh, by the way, Palom and Porom are back. Just out of nowhere. No, there's no side quest connected to them. There never has been. They're just back. Yeah, we got better. You know how you couldn't use any spells or items on us to stop us from being statues? The Elder just did magic better, and now we're okay. This game sometimes. Like, they could have had the most understandable comeback out of everyone. Like, Sid and Young blew up, but Palom and Porom were just statues, and even then they're just like, oh yeah, they're back. They're better now. Because this thing is way too slow to pilot ourselves. He's standing around, but he would definitely kick our ass. The lunar whale is pretty much only good for getting to the moon and back, and then around the moon. Oh, yeah, you know. He's from the moon. You know how it is. I think I'm talking to the guy who steered the ship straight into cannon fire earlier on. Look, I really don't appreciate this, guys, okay? Could you stop shooting at me? Alright, now we have to destroy him, so that we can remove the backdrop from the Earth. Seriously, I'm tired of seeing that black background. Right, so we are inside the Giant of Babel, and I don't know what he's talking about. Oh, of course there are monsters to guard this place. Why wouldn't there be? Oh, they've survived far worse. Indeed it does. So, I really like this dungeon. This is a cool one. Like, the layout's pretty great. We're starting in the Giant's Mouth, and the next floor, if we don't get into a random battle, is... the... oh... and we don't get to see because we get interrupted by an enemy that won't even attack us because it's a recolor of... what was it? The Security Eye? Alright, so this is a Searcher. They have 9,350 HP. They can pretty much only call enemies that appear in this dungeon anyway, so I'm not too worried about them. And that's pretty much it, because they aren't really going to do anything to stop me, since I'm just going to haste Cecil and then I'm going to focus him to death. Well, I'm going to focus and then attack him, but it'll be a good attack. I suppose I could use this time to mention that there's an enemy that was in previous and later versions of this game, but not the DS version for some reason. The name of the enemy is Last Arm, up until I think the PSP version, in which it's called Optic Blaster. But yeah, for some reason it's not in the game. I think it's like a monster in a box encounter at some point, but I don't know other versions well enough to know when it does appear. But again, yeah, I really don't know why they got rid of it. Like, it could be a time or budget thing, because it's just a recolor enemy that works exactly like those guys, just with different stats. I don't know why you would just run out of time and budget for that one enemy. Anyway, this super short floor was the Giant's Neck. Next off, if we don't get interrupted again, is the Giant's Chest. Seriously, this is a cool layout. This is also one of the larger floors of the dungeon. Basically, they go from small to large to back to small because you're exploring the Giant. And it's really cool because it's a really good setting for Final Fantasy IV. It might seem a little silly, but at the same time, I really like the fact that we have all of these, I guess, kind of out there locations, like the moon and the giant robot from out of nowhere. Anyway, I should describe these enemies, which are actually pretty difficult. We have Clockwork Soldiers and Beam Cannons. So, the Clockwork Soldiers have 9,800 HP, 50 Strength, 90 Defense. They don't have any special abilities, but they do have a lot of speed and a lot of strength. They are quite difficult enemies to take down, and before I get ahead of myself, let's go over Beam Cannon. Beam Cannon's got 6,000 HP, 46 Strength, 85 Defense, but its main annoying ability is Beam. Beam is a very powerful, not really spell, it's an attack, and it's one that really stings. I think like 10%, or 10% seems a little low, but often I feel like Beam should be one of those cuts your HP in half type attacks, but that's Demi that appears later on in the series. When does that actually come into the series? I'm pretty sure it's in 6, but it might be 5 as well. I don't think it's in this game though, because I don't remember seeing it, and I haven't seen it in the rest of the game, so I don't think it's there. Anyway, so, the Giant of Babel is actually a pretty difficult dungeon because of these enemies. Like, they don't have any amazing abilities that are hard to avoid. They're just very good. They're very strong and fast, kind of like the moon monsters, but even more so. Of course, they do have a weakness to electricity, and I think you might be able to cast Stop on them as well. Yeah, I think both the Beam Cannon and Clockwork Soldiers are susceptible, but I didn't really do that. And here we have some more enemies. These are Centurions. They have 9,999 HP, 50 Strength, and 90 Defense. No special abilities, and like the other enemies, they're still weak to electricity because I think pretty much all the enemies in this dungeon are just robots. Bye, Fusoya. Oh goodness, Fusoya is definitely a problem here. The other problem is, you kind of might want to take a risk with Edge, but maybe not. Because he pretty much has to be in the front row, you really have to decide whether or not you can afford to give him more evasion boosting equipment. Because it works very well for Edge. He's got some equipment that can really raise his evasion. But the problem is, if it doesn't work, then where does that leave you? That leaves you with a fairly defensively weakened... He's got decent HP, actually. But nonetheless, he's still not the best front rower, and therefore, if he does take a hit, it's gonna sting. Though, to be honest, it's not really helping him that much as is anyway, so... I don't know, the choice is yours whether you want to use that Genji equipment or stick with the evasion-type equipment. Right, so I actually have a fair few things to go over. Now the question is, do I want to go over them? Well, I suppose I could go with just describing the dungeon first and foremost. I like how it looks, even though it does look pretty similar to Tower of Babel. However, that makes sense in this version of the game because, of course, it's the Giant of Babel, same technology. That being said, I've already gone over. I love the layout of it. I think it's such a cool idea for a dungeon. It's a little bit straightforward, but not too much so I think it's still fun. And the music is fantastic. I love this song. In fact, I've forgotten the name of it, but it shouldn't really be... Oh, actually, I have it up here. It's The Giant's Dungeon, which is a really boring title, but that doesn't matter too much. And yeah, I already have Yoichihiro's. It might be a boring title, but it is a really good song. It's probably my #1 favorite dungeon theme in the game. Definitely not my favorite song in particular, but it's up there for certain. It is very nice. It's quite climactic, etc., etc. I could just go over ways it fits with this being very close to the end of the game, but I don't think I need to, right? So, we're in the Giant's Stomach, which, if I remember correctly, is one of the final floors. Not the final floor, but it's like the final big area overall. But we still have a fair few treasures to pick up. I suppose I could quickly go over the Proto-Babel. The Proto-Babel is a secret boss in the game, which can only be accessed once you've beaten the game once. There are 2 super bosses in the game, and both of them can't be fought on your first run, and I am wrong, the Giant's Stomach is not the final big map, which means the next one probably is, because we do have a save point before we get out. Anyway, yeah, the Proto-Babel is one of the 2 secret bosses. It's fought on the moon. You need a certain item in order to fight it, which is why you can't fight it on your first run. The other one, there's really no reason other than it just doesn't appear. And hey, what do you know, there's Namingway over there. Or maybe it's some random generic Namingway, because I don't think this one has any Namingway dialogue. Please? He's just a shopkeeper, right? Good, he's just a generic rabbit from the moon that dresses exactly like Namingway. But he's not horrible, and he sells us stuff, so I like him. You might want to buy some shurikens, those can be pretty useful. I am also running low on cottages, so let's buy some of those, and an extra one so we can use it. Anyway, yeah, I will continue going on about Proto-Babel in a minute, because we will have to do some stuff soon, but... yeah, basically, I won't be showing him off because I probably won't be doing New Game Plus stuff, and I've never fought him before, so I really don't have the confidence to do so. I know I managed to kill Iron Giant in Final Fantasy III, but that was A, cheats to make sure I didn't have to grind to do that, and B, sheer luck, which still ended in one of my party members being KO'd at the end of the fight, so yeah. That did suck. I think these super bosses are a little more well balanced, but I digress. Anyway, cutscene time. Hey fucker, how's it going?
You've come.
Oh no, one of the people I hate! And another one! And, who are you again?
You again.
Oh, darn.
Gifted us with life.
To rob you of yours.
How I yearn for this.
You came to the wrong neighborhood, motherfuckers.
You taught me a great truth. That many are more powerful than one.
So we're gonna gang up on you!
I'll restore you to full
Oh,
strength.
God damn it, does he have to do this every time?
Now,
I just wanted to
show us
kill them.
what power you
Whatever.
possess.
So, we have a fight with the Four Fiends! Thankfully, they're all gigantic, so we don't literally fight all of them at once. Actually, there is no version of the game in which you do fight them all at once, because if there was, that might actually be pretty difficult. As it stands, we do fight them all in one continuous battle. Meaning, if you set up now, that's gonna save you a whole lot of pain later, so let's get everything out of the way immediately before fighting Scarmillion. So, Scarmillion himself has 100,000 HP, 23 strength, 39 defense, and of course he has his counters from before. He is probably the easiest of the Four Fiends. Remember when he was a threat back on Mount Ordeals in this version? That's not true here. Even though I'm pretty sure his stats are kinda raised from what they were before, he's still not all that. That's Fusoya in all fairness, he sucks no matter what. But now I have to waste a turn bringing him back, so thanks for that, Fusoya. Thanks a lot. Anyway, so, if you want, you can probably just fight Scarmillion without any of the fancy tricks you used back on Mount Ordeals, because even if he hits you with his counters, which are Poison, Gas, and Elegy, was it? I forgot, but anyway, he really isn't a threat even if he does pull off counters. We've got a much more balanced party, you know, it's not all mages this time, and we're pretty powerful, and he hasn't grown that much, and as such, there's not really much he can do to really stop us. The other three fiends can be not too terribly difficult, but they have something that makes them, you know, a little bit threatening in some capacity. Whereas Scarmillion's main... he just tried to kill Fusoya again. Whereas the main difficulty of Scarmillion was the party you had back at the points in the game where you really couldn't deal with the sort of thing he was throwing at you, so you had to find a way to circumvent it. Oh, by the way, before I forget, this is the last point in the game in which you will need Steel equipped to Edge. I think it should be obvious why by this point. I just didn't want to give away before that we were going to fight these guys again. So, anyway, Scarmillion's gonna be mostly setup, which, even with two white mages, is gonna be kinda slow. And because I cast slow on Scarmillion, who doesn't seem... actually, no, he doesn't counter white... or he doesn't counter heal spells, so he probably doesn't counter white magic in general, which is definitely handy because it allowed me to use slow on him. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so since this is going to take a while... oh, he's just doing a attack counter, that's not bad at all. Anyway, yeah, since this is going to take a while, I should bring up the secret bosses. So, I guess I'll... actually, no... Protobabbl's gonna get into a whole nother thing, because Protobabbl's actually kind of a cool boss. So I suppose we'll go over Garyon, the other super boss of the game. Now, this one can be fought on subsequent playthroughs, just not the first one. He can be fought in two different locations. He can be fought, well... it's a mix of the Four Fiends, basically. I probably put up an image of Garyon on screen by this point. Garyon's kind of fucked up. And of course, like the other fiends, which I'm pretty sure I mentioned this, but they're all named after characters in the Divine Comedy. Actually, yeah, I remember going on and on about how I forgot where most of them came from, because I remember reading the canto that they were in. I just forgot what they did. They were like tricksters or something who tried to make them detour somewhere dangerous or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, Garyon, real fucked up. Haven't fought him before, so don't know much about him. And he can be fought either here. Once you defeat the 4 fiends and leave the room, you can come back and fight them here, and it will say that the malice of the 4 fiends is anchored here or something like that. The other location you can fight them is on Mount Dordeals, because, wink wink nudge nudge, we might not be able to fight them in the Giant of Babel forever, cough cough cough. So, the other boss was the Proto-Babel, which basically looks like the Giant of Babel, except you can fit on screen. And as I said before, you need an item called Dark Matter. I will try to remember to bring it up when it's actually relevant, but needless to say, we can't get Dark Matter for a first playthrough. And remember that face on the moon that I was talking about before we flew over it in our airship earlier? If you use the Dark Matter in front of that, that's where you fight Proto-Babel. And I've got his page open just so I can see what he does, because Garyon I don't remember being too terribly interesting. Proto-Babel has 400,000 HP, gives you 2 million experience, and 99,999 gil. He's got 99 in pretty much all stats other than attack and defense, both of which are 200. And his evasion's only 40, his accuracy is 130, and of course he's got no weaknesses, but he doesn't have any particular strengths or absorb elements. Oh, we actually went to the second boss, cool. Alright, I'll get back to him in a second. So this is Cognazo. I believe he also has 100,000 HP, and wait a second. Okay, good. Yeah, they have different strengths, because for a moment I thought from the similar HP that they all had the same stats, and I was going to be annoyed for a second. But anyway, 32 strength. He is, as always, weak to ice normally, lightning when he has his water barrier up. Oh, yep. Alright, so let us cast Thundara. I don't want to go for just a normal Thunder, because thanks to Fast Talker, I should be able to do a Thundara pretty easily. Actually, to be honest, now that we do have Fast Talker, I think we could even use a Thundaga on him. Like earlier on in the game, you do not want to do that with Tella, because if you do, chances are he is going to punt you to the moon, and that wouldn't be good. Anyway, as per usual, of course he has his Tsunami attack, which is still dangerous since it can inflict instant death. It probably doesn't do as much damage as it did back then. Like I mentioned when we did the first fight with Cognazo, I once had a run where I fucked up and only Cecil was left alive, and only barely. Here I think we'd all survive as long as we didn't get one hit killed. Except Fusoya, he would totally die even if instant death wasn't inflicted. So, let's see, Proto-Babel. Alright, I did not go over his moves. Oh yeah, and of course he has no status weaknesses, because why would he? He's got 9th Dimension, Light of Babel, Heal, Divine Judgment, Laser Barrage, and Object 199. I'm not going to go over all of those moves. I think one of them does like 9,998 damage, so if you're missing any HP or you haven't maxed out HP, it's gonna kill ya. I forget which one it is, and again, I'm not going to go over all of his abilities because, you know, this isn't the Proto-Babel fight. You can look it up if you want. I just want to go over his attack names, which are all kind of cool. If you're into JRPG boss attack names, they're all pretty great. I am also going to get slightly on a tangent, because I'm going to talk about the After Years a little bit, because there is a secret boss in only the 2D versions of the After Years, There is a 2D and a 3D version of the After Years. I mean, I'd guess neither are really all that good, because the After Years kind of sucks, but I'm going to see if I can find this enemy, because this is actually a pretty cool secret boss, and honestly, oh, we're at Barbarisha, so I'll continue on with that in a minute. So, Barbarisha, 100,000 HP, of course, 40 strength. Actually, I should really be going over attack. 44 attack. I've been getting it wrong all this time. 75 defense. And, of course, she has a lot of counters, and she has a lot more evasion now that she's in tornado form. And unfortunately, Barbarisha is probably the most difficult of the four fiends, because... oh yeah, Maelstrom is also dangerous, but we do have Blink on, so it's not too bad. But anyway, Kane's not in the party, and Jump is never an augment, ever. So you can't get it as an augment, and therefore you can't fight Barbarisha normally. You have to pretty much use magic on her, because hitting her when she's in tornado form is pretty much impossible. So, before I forget, I forgot to mention one thing about this battle that's different from earlier versions. The original order of the Four Fiends was actually Scarmeleon, Rubicante, Cognazzo, Barbarisha. You might be wondering, why was it in that order? That's a really weird order to put them in. Well, that's because it was actually referencing the original Final Fantasy. The order of the fiends in the original game, of course, was Lich, Merilith, Leviathan, Tiamat. So, of course, Earth, Fire, Water, Wind. And that's the order they used for the original games. But in the 3D versions, they do order them in the order you fought. I kinda think it makes more sense this way as well. I don't know, Barbarisha at the end does sort of make sense, since again she's probably the hardest, but Rubicante is not the second easiest of the bosses. Cognazzo's still second easiest, only behind Scarmeleon. So anyway, Giant of Babel, the secret boss in the After Years. I'm looking up to see if I can find his name, but basically it's the Giant of Babel, except you fight him on the outside and the inside. And I really wish they did that. It would have been pretty cool. Though at the same time, the gimmick of that game is, because it's kind of like Chrono Cross in that they prioritized quantity over quality in terms of characters, there are a lot of characters. So basically you just have a different group of characters fighting every form. And then the last group goes inside to fight whatever's controlling the Giant of Babel, or whatever it's called there. It is pretty cool, but again, only available in 2D versions for some reason. I guess they didn't want to model it because they were lazy or something? Who knows? I am not having a good time finding Giant of Babel, or, oh, here it is. Oh, darn it, of course. And you get out of the way. Lost Babel is the name of the boss. But of course we can't get to that just yet, because first we have to go over Rubicante. 100,000 HP, 54 attack, 122 defense, and of course he has his usual weaknesses, and he will still kill the shit out of you with Inferno. That is still a very strong attack that will wipe the floor with you. So, at this point you'll want to have Edge on the ready to hit him with a Steel, and with Fast Talker I could probably hit him with a good elemental attack. Do I want to do that? Nah, not right now. Anyway, yeah, Lost Babel, really cool idea for a boss. Probably not possible in this version of the game, although they could have done it in the Game Boy Advance version. Reason being is, I'll just say this now, I don't like the GBA version that much, but it does have a really cool feature in which you can play as the other characters after this point. So yeah, you know how pretty much all the characters other than Tella survived? The Game Boy Advance version is the only version, to my knowledge, unless the PSP version did this, which I don't know if it did. It's the only version in which it allows you to use other characters besides your final party, because, you know, they figured, hey, we need something new for this game. A lot of the characters survived this story, so you know what? After Giant of Babel, we'll let you use them, and it's pretty cool. However, it also leads to one of my least favorite things about Final Fantasy IV Game Boy Advance, and that is, of course, the bonus dungeons. Remember back in the Game Boy Advance games, I'm pretty sure I mentioned at some point, how during the Game Boy Advance period of remakes, Square really did not know how to make bonus dungeons for their game. Because the secret dungeons in Final Fantasy I were awful. I liked them conceptually, and 2, it just didn't work out that way because it's just the final dungeon again with different characters, and that's not really that fun. For the Game Boy Advance, you have the Lunar Trials. I probably won't talk about them now because I want to get a little more in-depth, and we're pretty much done here, actually. I will say, though, in the Game Boy Advance version, the face on the moon is actually how you go to the bonus dungeons once you finish the game. So that has a different use in the Game Boy Advance version than it does in the DS version. Anyway, we should be just about done here, because I've been doing some pretty good damage to Rubicante, and not much else other than when he opens his cloak. Because I'm doing that. Oh god, I love Focus. Focus is so good. You really want to put that on Cecil because it makes him such an excellent damage dealer. And he is pretty much the designated damage dealer at this point, since Yong's not in the party anymore. And what do you know? Rubicante is done! So we still couldn't really fight the 4 fiends in a straightforward manner, with the exception of Scarmeleon, but even then, I think we did a pretty good job, right? But seriously, equip Steel, otherwise he will destroy you with Inferno. Well, shit. Again. Why don't I have any teeth? Why does this always happen? Well, that's us dead. What a world, what a world. And that's it for the 4 fiends. Well, yeah, probably. Why wouldn't Golbez be in his walking death machine, giant, robot, whatever? Edge does really seem like he likes getting vengeance on Rubicante. Yeah, probably. I mean, we haven't seen him since he betrayed us, but I'd imagine he would be. Alright, so we did manage to defeat the 4 fiends, however that was a very long battle, so we should rest up for what's ahead. Next time on Final Fantasy IV, we'll pass that room, and we'll see just what the 4 fiends were guarding. What could it possibly be? I bet it's candy. A whole lot of candy. They wanted it all for themselves. You know what? It was probably a full-on meal. They just had a buffet, and they wouldn't let us get to it. What a bunch of jerks. They truly are the most evil of all of Earth's creatures.